Hey, what up guys? In today's video, I wanted to cover an M1 or aim-based style build for Mina because she's kind of a cool character in that you can build her more for her abilities or you can build her more for M1 damage because of the way her 3 works. And the cool thing also is even if you're building for more of an aim-based style of gameplay, you can still do a ton of damage with your abilities because you do still build a lot of spirit. So without further ado, let's actually get into the build and start from the top here. We got Rapid Round and Kinetic Dash. These give Fire Rate, which are really good. Kinetic Dash also helps you get more stamina, and which is really good on her because Mina only gets 2 stamina by default. And the extra 8 ammo is really huge because as you can see here, she only gets 17 ammo baseline. So any percent ammo increases you get from items like from escalating resilience doesn't really help you all too much. As you can see, you only get 4 bullets from that 30% additional ammo. So instead, when you get Kinetic Dash, that +8 ammo goes a long way. It's almost like getting a little mini Titanic magazine on top of the other stats it gives you. So Kinetic Dash is really good on Mina. And then you can get Improved Spirit and Quicksilver Reload for that early game burst damage because it helps all of your abilities, but it also increases your M1 damage with Improved Spirit because of your 3. And on top of it, Quicksilver Reload reloads your gun and gives you fire rate and will eventually build into Mercurial Magnum, which is really nice. And then we get Toxic Bullet. And Toxic Bullet is really good on Mina because her raw M1 damage really isn't that high in comparison to something like Wraith or Haze, for example. She's not like a hyper scaling M1. You kind of have to think of her more like a Mirage or an Eternus. And if you're a new player, you might not know much about those characters, but she's not going to do a crazy hyper carry amount of DPS in the late game, but with Toxic Bullet, it will add a lot of extra damage for you over time to help compensate for her somewhat lower end DPS for an M1 carry, but she's still really good. Don't worry about that too much. And then you get extra health to help build into Fortitude later, and that extra HP is going to be really good because flat HP on this hero is good in general because her base HP is really tiny. So if I can reset it, I think it's bugged right now, but her base HP I believe is 570. So it's really low. And then for the options here, we have Healing Right, which is good. And before I go on, I annotated pretty much every option in the build. So if you kind of have a question about any item, you can hover over them and read what they say. But Healing Right is really good in lane when you need a lot of healing very quickly because you're really low. Like say you're at like 10% HP in lane, you can buy Healing Right and heal. Restorative Shot, it's kind of an item you buy when you're in a situation where you need consistent healing. So if you're fighting anything that's going to keep getting you low HP over a course of time, so say you're fighting Vindicta or something, you want to get Restorative Shot to be able to consistently heal in lane. And then Restorative Locket is really good because as you can see here, it can allow you to turn fights or to chase people because it does give you 2 stamina. So it's a really good item. If you can stack up your Restorative Locket and you ever get low, it can heal you for like 600 damage or more, or 600 HP when you get a lot of spirit because it does scale with spirit. And it can also help you run away by giving you stamina. So it's a really good item when you need to be on your toes and you need to be able to survive. So for example, if you're fighting a very spirit heavy comp or on the enemy team, you can get something like Spirit Shielding and Restorative Locket to just give you a bunch of flat HP essentially to help survive a big amount of burst. So for example, if the enemy team has a Pocket, a Yamato, a Calico, maybe even something like a Spirit Abram sometimes, I don't know. These items can really help you survive that burst and to help you either get away or turn the fight in your favor. And then we can get into Fleetfoot because with her 3, if you see here, it gives you +4 movement speed when you proc your Loving Bite or your Love Bite. That 4 movement speed comboed with Fleetfoot is going to make you very fast, and I can quickly show you right now, especially when comboed with Burst Fire, that you're going to move a lot in a fight. You can see you can slide around a ton when you proc Burst Fire, which also gives you additional sliding distance, and you get Fleetfoot, and you get the movement speed. You're going to be able to move around and kind of compensate for your low magazine size by being able to slide around. Because if you didn't know, if you're new, sliding does give you infinite ammo during the slide. And then we end up getting Spirit Lifesteal to eventually build into Leech, which is really good because it does give you flat HP, like I said before, really good on this character, and that Lifesteal is really going to help her being able to sustain herself during these long-winded fights. And then we can get Burst Fire, which builds from Rapid Run, which we bought earlier, because it's going to give you, like I said, that slide distance, ammo, and that burst fire rate, which is going to be really, really good on applying Toxic Bullet and proccing your Love Bite burst on the enemy target very quickly. And it's going to be able to help you move around. And then you get Fortitude, again, for more base HP, and it heals you over time out of combat, and it gives you movement speed. So like I said, all these items are giving us movement speed, or base HP, or fire rate, or spirit, basically. And then we go into the big ticket items here, which is Mercurial Magnum, which does give you extra bullet damage on every bullet based off the amount of spirit you have. It gives you a little bit of ammo, a little bit of spirit, just a really, really good item, and it gives you fire rate. So in that late game, when you proc this item off of your 1, when you imbue it on your 1, every time you pop your 1, you're going to be shooting a ton, and you're going to be doing extra spirit damage, which is really good to help her keep having that damage potential in the late game. And then finally you cap it off with Boundless Spirit, which is really, really good for adding more burst to your combo and your abilities, and it does fuel your Mercurial Magnum to improve the amount of damage the base bullet damage scaling on Mercurial Magnum. And now we can go into the CC options, which are another thing you could be looking to buy depending on what you're fighting. So for example, if you're fighting a ton of M1 heroes, Suppressor can be really, really good to nerf their fire rate for a very cheap price, and it's a pretty hard counter in my opinion. I think this item needs to be nerfed, but it's a really hard counter in that early game to a lot of M1. Slowing Hex is really good into any hero that relies on their movement abilities to either get away or to engage. So for example, denying Abram his ability to charge you with Slowing Hex is really good, or you can deny Lash being able to grapple away with Slowing Hex. So it's really good into a comp that relies heavily on their movement abilities. So definitely pick this up if you notice that the enemy team has these weaknesses. Silence Wave is really good into enemies with crowd control abilities or abilities that make them immune or have really strong ultimates, so you can buy this if you really need it. And then finally, Curse is really good if there's like one particular person on the enemy team that you need to shut down and hard counter. So say for example, there's a really strong pocket on the enemy team. The moment he jumps into your team to pop Affliction, if you have Curse, when he starts the Affliction animation, you can curse him and then get him killed. So it's a really good item depending on what you're fighting. And then you can get Leech and Siphon Bullet in that late game to help you sustain in a team fight by either giving you bonus HP on every bullet, or not on every bullet, but on your bullets, or getting a lot of lifesteal to help sustain. Both of these items are really good for just flat out surviving. And then we have a ton more options here. Again, if you have any questions, you can hover over them, but they're pretty self-explanatory when you read the item. This gives Armor Shred, which is really good in that late game if the enemy is building very tanky items. Unstoppable is really good into CC or crowd control abilities like Dynamo Ulti, Lash Ulti, stuff like that. Colossus is really good on top of these other items to just give you a ton of bonus HP to make you super tanky and hard to kill, on top of how already elusive you are on this character. Spiritual Overflow is a ultra late game DPS item if you really need it, that gives you a high amount of single target damage. Spirit Rend is really good for like a relatively cheap anti-spirit armor item. It's really good at people who are stacking spirit armor. You can just buy this and try to shred their armor away over time. Cooldown is really good on this character. It benefits every ability she has. It's really, really good, but it is situational because my style is more M1, whereas other builds will prioritize cooldown reduction because they're building for their ultimate and their 1 more than their 3. So for them, they want Transcendent cooldown. And for me, it's still a really good item, but I don't prioritize it, but you can still get it. And Ethereal Shift kind of combos well with cooldown reduction because it allows you to extend out a fight by going immune and becoming untargetable. So you can use it to kind of go immune, wait for your cooldowns to come back up, you get out of it, and maybe your cooldowns are up by that time, and you can use your 2 to get away. And it also gives you movement speed, spirit armor, and all that good stuff. Really good item. And then Ricochet is another ultra late game item for team fighting that allows you to do basically AoE damage with your bullets. And then now we have the pure defensive items that are relatively cheaper. So for anti-spirit, your bang for your buck in that early game is going to be Spirit Shielding. This item is really good and scales with your level. So whenever you're fighting a very high damage team that does a lot of spirit, you can go ahead and buy Spirit Shielding to try to survive. And then you kind of can think of Spirit Shielding as the early game option, the mid game option for quick spirit armor is Spirit Resilience, and that late game option is going to be Spellbreaker. So you can kind of think of buying these in order if you want, depending on the point in the game. And then counter spells another item to dodge abilities, because whenever you parry, you can parry an ability with this item and get healing, spirit power, movement speed. It's a really, really strong item depending on what you're fighting. Enchanter's Emblem, I'm not really sold on, but if you do want to buy it, I did leave it here in the build. And then debuff remover and debuff reducer is really good into any comp that has a ton of debuffs. So for example, a knife build Shiv, a Vindicta, an Infernus. You get the idea. If they have really powerful debuffs, you can get debuff remover. And then for anti-gun items, basically bullet armor, escalating resilience is going to be your best bang for your buck in this build, because you're going to be able to stack up the bullet resist with your bullets very fast, because our fire rate's going to be very quick. So this item is like the best bang for your buck. But bullet resilience is kind of like more reliable, I guess. You don't have to stack it up. So if you really need to double stack bullet armor, you can get both of these. And then plated armor is really good in the ultra late game if they have a ton of M1 and you want to prevent their on hit effects. So if you're fighting a Haze or Infernus, for example, this item is really good. And the metal skin is good if you're taking a ton of very high burst M1 damage. So for example, a Viper who can get on top of you can burst you down very quickly, or a Haze in her ultimate can kill you. So metal skin is good to counter that. And then finally, holy crap, we've went through all the items. We have anti-heal. Spirit Burns, like the best bang for your buck anti-heal item in that late game. It does a minus 70% healing reduction on the enemy. So if you ever need to get a bunch of anti-heal, say for example you're fighting a Yamato, Abram, Infernus, basically characters that rely on healing, Shiv as well maybe, Spirit Burn can be really, really good to counter them in that late game. And then finally we have Inhibitor, which does have anti-heal and a damage penalty. So if you're fighting a very high damage comp, Inhibitor can be very, very good, especially if you're fighting a lot of enemy carries. It can give you weapon damage, bonus HP, anti-heal, and a damage penalty. Just a really good item in that late game if you're fighting a bunch of carries. But that's going to be the general build for you and all the options we have. So if you wanted to like go through every item, I did want to cover everything so you know what to build. But yeah, that's going to be the build. And in the background, I'll hopefully have footage for you, and you're going to be able to see that you do a ton of M1 damage, but you also still do a good amount of ability damage as well. So let me know what you guys think if you try out the build. It is going to be more aim dependent than other builds that rely more on their ult and their one, but you know, even if you don't have that great aim, let me know what you thought about the build, if it was trash or if it was good. But anyways, guys, that'll be it for me. Thank you so much for watching. I'm out.